Trent McDuffie's a hot topic in Chiefs Kingdom right now.
Los Angeles would receive Trent McDuffie and a 2026 fifth-round pick from the Chiefs. The Chiefs would receive a 2026 first-round pick, number 29th overall.
That's not going to happen.
You can go trade McDuffie, but the other option besides that nuclear option of get him the hell out is maybe you just re-sign him. You get to keep a top 3 corner in football, and you still get to save $6.4 million on the cap this year. And again, that $6.4 million could go towards a big running back like an Etienne or a Breece Hall.
Mike, there's a lot of Chiefs fans that really want to see Trey Hendrickson in a Chiefs uniform, and rightfully so. The guy's been one of the best pass rushers in football for the last few years.
Last year, we couldn't have found the quarterback if we had a GPS system on us. That's how bad they were. They couldn't get out there and do it. Is Trey Hendrickson that guy? I don't know if he's that guy or not, but it's fun to talk about.
Listening to All Chiefed Up, the podcast.
Chiefs Kingdom, ACU crew, welcome back to All Chiefed Up, the #1 independent Chiefs channel on YouTube. It is Tuesday, February 17th, and Mike, there's a lot of buzz from the fans saying that the Chiefs need to swing big at defensive end in free agency and maybe go after the best one out there, Trey Hendrickson. But before we get started about that, let's talk about this Bill Barnwell trade proposal for Trent McDuffie to the Los Angeles Rams.
Absolutely. I think this is going around Chiefs Kingdom a lot. Will Brett Veach be able to extend Trent McDuffie? Do we want to hold on to him and do nothing and just eat that 13.5 cap number this year? Or do we want to trade him, possibly pick up a first-round pick or more? Bill Barnwell proposes a mock trade that sends McDuffie to the Rams, per at Sleeper Chiefs KC. Says Los Angeles would receive Trent McDuffie and a 2026 fifth-round pick from the Chiefs. The Chiefs would receive a 2026 first-round pick, number 29th overall. Steve, I'm not really liking that trade. I think Trent McDuffie is worth more than just the 29th pick, not to mention we have to send a fifth-round pick over with him. I think that's a little too rich for that number 29.
Absolutely, man. I'm not adding a fifth-round pick with Trent McDuffie if I'm trading him for just 29. That's not going to happen. I'm with you. No. I think you could probably get a little bit more on the other end. But either way, Trent McDuffie's a hot topic in Chiefs Kingdom right now. Like you said, everybody's wanting to know, are they going to extend this guy? All the inside information lately has been the Chiefs are looking to extend Trent McDuffie. And you talked about that, Mike. If they extend him, they could actually save quite a bit of cap space this next year by doing so. Also, if they just sit, $13.6 million for Trent McDuffie, not too shabby for a top 3 corner in football. So there's lots of options out there for the Chiefs and Brett Veach as what to do with Trent McDuffie. And I think they could kind of go either way, dude. It looks like to me that Trent McDuffie could be valuable in a trade. And also, if they decide to sign him long term, he would be the first cornerback in a long time for that to happen with the Chiefs. But he was a first-round draft pick they traded up for. They invested in him heavily, and he's been pretty productive.
I think that they have to do something here with Trent McDuffie. A lot of people are saying they sit on their hands there. Just kind of let it go. I think you've even been in that ballpark. You're like, look, let's just let him sit.
Right.
No, just let him sit. $13.5 million for Trent McDuffie in 2026 is not that bad. It really isn't. But I think you got to look at it long term. We're $55 million about over the cap right now. By March 11th, we've got to get that, right back to even. We got to have money to spend in free agency. So it's got to be there. I threw out a proposal that if Brett Veach really wants to, go against the grain of what he does, bring back Trent McDuffie, as it was reported that they were looking to extend him, I come up with the figure of he's wanting about $25 million for per year. Could they do like a 4-year, $100 million? And this is a ballpark with about $75 million guaranteed. And what that was going to do was give him about a $30 million signing bonus. And then in 2026, once he gets that prorated contract, it's $6 million, with his new base salary being $1.25 in 2026. So only about a $7.25 million cap hit in 2026. That in itself does save you about $6.4 million. And that $6.4 million goes a long way. Just saving $6.4 million could be the difference between not being able to afford on the 2026 cap number a Breece Hall or a Travis Etienne. So I think you got to really look at that. And I think that's why it's been floated, is that, look, you can go trade McDuffie, but the other option besides that nuclear option of get him the hell out is maybe you just re-sign him. You get to keep a top 3 corner in football, and you still get to save $6.4 million on the cap this year. And again, that $6.4 million could go towards a big running back like an Etienne or a Breece Hall.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you go back to the trade, man, I think here's the deal with Trent McDuffie. If you're going to trade him to the Rams for pick 29, that's a pretty good deal. That's a high, like a likely trade that could happen. However, adding that 5th rounder in there with McDuffie is a little too rich. And I'm thinking if multiple teams are after McDuffie, if they can get a couple teams that want him, if they bait him out there on the trade block, then I think they could probably get that 29th pick and maybe even add in up to a 3rd rounder, even if it's 2027. I think they could get more for McDuffie than what Barnwell's proposing here. If you go back and look at some of the other guys they've done this with, like L'Jarius Sneed, they ended up getting a 3rd round pick and a future 7th round pick out of him. And a lot of people expected to get a lot more, but I thought that was a fair trade for L'Jarius Sneed. And then you start looking at Marcus Peters. They traded him for a 2nd and a future 4th. And Marcus Peters was a highly productive corner as well. So I think if they trade McDuffie, I think they have to kind of avoid getting a disappointing return because they invested heavily in him in the 1st round. He's performed a top 3 to 5 corner in football his entire time in the NFL. I don't think you just let him walk for just anything, especially like you said, if they extend him, they can get that cap number down. Or if they even just stand pat, $13.6 million isn't terrible for Trent McDuffie this year, and they could still look at tagging him the year after that and trading him then. So there's just a lot of options, man, and I don't think they should give him away too easily.
No, absolutely not. Trent McDuffie, besides Sauce Gardner, and you see what he was able to get this year with the Colts and that trade, he's one of the top 2, 3, 4 corners in football that he may be the ultimate corner that is available for the trade market right now. And that's because it's only 13.5, and then you've got to extend him the contract. You don't got to eat a big bunch of money. You don't have to redo anything. Like you would just, pretty much take the $13.5 million and then you go ahead and you re-sign him. So I think that he is definitely a hot commodity if you're in the market for a corner and you want to use the trade market route. Again, Bill Barnwell, I don't know if he meant to say that we should get a 5th round with that, but the way this was wrote up, we took it as he said that we had to give the 5th rounder.
He absolutely said that. Yeah.
Right. So that's just not real. Bleacher Report recently said that they projected a trade where we would get a top 20 pick for Trent McDuffie. Now, I think if you could get a top 20 pick for Trent McDuffie, you may not get nothing on the back end. But if you get a late 1st round pick, you're every bit going to ask for a 3rd, 4th, 5th round pick in return. And honestly, I like the idea of maybe getting a 2nd or 3rd this year and maybe getting the 1st in 2027 because the draft class is a lot deeper in 2027.
I think even if it was just an even trade, Trent McDuffie for pick number 29, I wouldn't be completely mad at it. I still think that's a little low ball for Trent McDuffie, but that would give you 3 top 40 picks in this year's draft. So you could absolutely add a lot of talent at a cheap price if you were able to have 3 of the top 40 picks in the draft this year. And let's be honest, this year's draft is pretty top heavy. It's not the deepest draft I've seen in a while.
Oh, yeah.
And I think you kind of want to get the guys early. So that wouldn't be terrible. I'm still not a big fan of just trading for that. But if that were the case, I could maybe go for it just thinking about getting 3 of those top 40 picks. Mike, you mentioned Trent McDuffie is a hot commodity. Well, let's talk about another hot commodity, y'all. Let's talk about edge rusher Trey Hendrickson, who's going to be on the free agent market because him and the Cincinnati Bengals just can't see eye to eye. Mike, there's a lot of Chiefs fans that really want to see Trey Hendrickson in a Chiefs uniform, and rightfully so. The guy's been one of the best pass rushers in football for the last few years, and we've had a problem at edge rusher. We've had a problem with getting pressure on the quarterbacks. But here's the thing, man. He's going to come with a hefty price tag. We've talked about this a few times, and it could be a tight squeeze for the Chiefs if they were able to do it. Is it possible? I think it's possible. If they free up enough space when they start making cuts and restructuring contracts, I think they could make enough space for him. However, it would be tight, and it would limit what else you were able to do in free agency.
Yeah, look, I said it in a short just the other day when the whole Bradley Chubb thing come out. We were talking about maybe the Chiefs take a look at Bradley Chubb. When you start thinking about it, he would be somewhere around the same money cap hit value as a Trey Hendrickson. And I know Trey Hendrickson is maybe a couple years older, But Trey Hendrickson has been very productive. And I said it in that video about Bradley Chubb. The Chiefs need a pass rusher that can get after the quarterback because George Karlaftis had a down year last year, and I just don't think he's ever going to be that top-tier guy. Chris Jones, on the other hand, Father Time's just starting to beat up on him a little bit. And the fact that he has no help across the board, the Chiefs keep drafting guys that are serviceable to great pass rushers in college, and then you're like, well, they should at least be serviceable in the NFL, but they're adding weight to Omar Norman-Lott after a 20% pass rush win rate at Tennessee.
Crazy.
Felix Anudike-Uzomah come out of K-State and had one of the better pass rushing arsenals you've seen, and they got him worried about setting the edge, and he don't get to use his athleticism. So there's problems there. And last year, we couldn't have found the quarterback if we had a GPS system on us. That's how bad they were. They couldn't
rough.
get out there and do it. So they have to go make a jump for somebody. Is Trey Hendrickson that guy? I don't know if he's that guy or not, but it's fun to talk about. And like you said, you've got to get rid of Mike Dana this year. He's got to be one of those guys. He's eating up $11 million on the cap. He's got to go. Okay,
right.
We know they're already probably getting rid of Jawan Taylor to save some space, but you've got a lot of moves you got to make. But it looks like Dana is going to have to go. That means they're probably not going to take another look, or at least I wouldn't, at Charles Omenihu. So you need somebody to come in. I believe that you've got the draft you can look at, but if you want to look somewhere and pay, $10 million, $12 million a year, Trey Hendrickson is a guy. The Bengals and him are not in a good space right now. Now, it has been rumored that they could tag and trade him like we did L'Jarius Sneed a few years ago. From everything that I'm reading out of there, I think it was Bengals Wire come out with something. They said that it just doesn't look good between those two. So they think he may even hit the open market, that it may not get to that point. So,
right.
Steve, if it gets to the open market, he's looking at about $25.4 million per year, so about a 2-year deal worth about $50 to $51 million. That would be a projected cap hit of 12.5 in 2026, and that's statistically trying to put in a little bit of void years to try to make that cap number get to 12.5. So it's very possible they couldn't even get it to 12.5 because we know Brett Veach doesn't like to use void years a lot.
Right. Well, the path to getting Trey Hendrickson, as you're talking about, he's going to cost a lot. $25.4 million per year average. That's not something to scoff at. Now, is he worth it? Quite possibly. We'll talk about that in a second. But we got to get there. We got to figure out how to get the money to do that. And we've talked about several different ways for Veach to free up some cap space. But I think if you go the Trey Hendrickson route, you're wanting to pay one guy, specifically a pass rush specialist, that much money. I think it kind of hinges on Chris Jones. You have to restructure Chris Jones if you're going to invest that much in pass rush. You absolutely have to. If you can't get Chris Jones to budge and restructure, then I think you're out on this dude. He's just a little bit too pricey. I don't think you can invest all that there. Now, production-wise, though, Mike, he's had a bit of some injury problems. So it's a little bit of a risk because he's coming off of surgery and stuff like that. But it also isn't, because in 2025, he only played 7 games because he had like a core muscle surgery or something like that. He had 4 sacks in those 7 games, but he had a blistering 90% PFF pass rush grade in those games in 2025. So, I mean, he's still doing work. Previously to that, he put up back-to-back seasons of 17.5 sacks. So when he is healthy and he's on the football field, he is an absolute game changer. Now, the Spagnuolo factor, you mentioned how he doesn't like to use guys certain ways, tries to change things here and there. Now, we do know that their defense kind of thrives on like a heavy rotation and versatility and stuff like that. Hendrickson's a pretty much just a pure speed to power specialist. That's what this guy's going to do. He'd be the best pure pass rusher on the roster immediately, but it's coming with that huge price tag, and it might be smarter to get multiple pieces at a lower price tag than just going out and paying so much to Trey Hendrickson. I love the idea of having a guy that can come in and wreck a game and be a complete game changer, especially in a spot that's a total need for the Chiefs, which is getting after the passer. This is something that we've lacked for a couple of years now. And that's even with our defense actually being pretty good. So if you take that pretty good defense and then you stack on a great pass rush, all of a sudden they could get back in that top 5, top 3 defenses in the league. And with Andy trying to tweak the offense a little bit, if they can get that fired back up, the Chiefs could absolutely be a very big competitor right off the rip in 2026.
There is nothing like the rush of game day, and that's why we've teamed up with DraftKings Sportsbook to help you get started. If you love the thrill of live betting, DraftKings has got you covered. You can bet live on star player props and in-progress games right as they happen. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 back in bonus bets if your bet wins. It's as simple as that. So just sign up using our promo code ACU. With DraftKings, the crown is yours. Right, you mentioned converting some money over from Chris Jones. They may have to do that. Chris Jones wouldn't probably mind it. I mean, you're just going to get cut a big old paycheck in the offseason. You don't have to do that week to week. So I don't think he would mind it. You could maybe restructure the contract a little bit. If you're like, look, Chris, do you want to keep getting double and triple teamed at the age of 33 and making a big bunch of money? Or do you want to try to bring in a guy like a Trey Hendrickson and put him with George Karlaftis and some of these younger studs, and maybe we draft one or a couple defensive tackles, and let's make this defensive line one of the best in football, maybe one of the best in history at what you guys could do.
Right.
You would have to almost consider, if I'm Chris Jones, I would almost consider that a little bit. Like, what is more important, having a big bank account or being able to cement your legacy as one of the greatest to do it and to keep adding Super Bowl rings? I think that's what I would do if I were him. But you also mentioned Steve Spagnuolo's defensive scheme. We know what he values in edge rushers, and it's not what our Chiefs Kingdom fans are wanting to see. Like, we want to see a lot of people, like we seen it live yesterday. People are like, we want our Derek Thomases back. We want our Jared Allens. You want those speed rushers. People wanting to draft David Bailey. It just doesn't happen. Spags wants these big physical dudes. He wants some high motors, technically sound guys. That's what he's after. He's after the George Karlaftis of the world. Trey Hendrickson does fit this. He's a pure pass rusher. He wins with an elite first step. He's got great moves across the board. Like, we know all about him. You don't have to scout Trey Hendrickson. Like, we understand Trey Hendrickson. Right. He would fit what Spags likes to do. And another thing is, you say, well, why does he get paid so much? Well, he does a lot of disruption, not only with the sack game, and I'm going to talk about that in just a second, but also defensively. He is a PFF run defensive grade, has been consistently in the top 5 to 10 in league average for his entire time as a starter with the Bengals. So he can also set the edge, stop the run. It's not just, hey, he can get the passer and nothing else. He does everything across the board. This dude is a every down player. He can kick inside the NASCAR packages if they really wanted to. I don't know why you would want to do that, because if I'm paying him money, I'm brushing him off the edge. That's the way it is.
100%.
But Trey Hendrickson, man, in 2023, 17.5 sacks. In 2024, 17.5 sacks. Led the NFL. In 2025, like you mentioned earlier, had the oblique. He injured himself. He still had 4 sacks. So in the past 3 years being injured in 2025, he's had 39 total sacks.
Insane, brother.
That is insane. And so if you just look at the year that he wasn't injured, he leads everybody, and that includes TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, and Max Crosby. And even if you put the injury year in there, he only finishes 7 sacks behind TJ Watt, and he still beats Max Crosby by 2 sacks and Myles Garrett by a sack, or by half a sack. So he is super productive. That was missing all that time in 2025. That's how productive Trey Hendrickson is.
He's elite, man. He's the best in the league lately. He just is when he's healthy and on the football field. Mike, there's one other factor I want to talk about with getting Trey Hendrickson in here, and it's not a huge one, but it's just something to acknowledge. But if you did bring in a Trey Hendrickson, you're looking at stunting the growth of Ashton Gillotte, because Gillotte's automatically going to go to that rotational backup guy, and we've been kind of wanting to see him get in there and get more PT, because the more he was getting it last season, the better he was getting, the faster he can develop, and maybe Ashton Gillotte could be a great edge rusher for the Chiefs. We just don't know yet. What do you think about that? Would it be worth it to bring in a guy at a high dollar amount like a Trey Hendrickson, even though you just invested the 3rd round on Ashton Gillotte and he's looking promising? Do you think that would stun his growth a little bit, or do you think that's a factor at all?
I actually think it would help Ashton Gillotte to be able to learn behind Trey Hendrickson for another year or two. That would mean Ashton Gillotte is still a young corner into, say he stays here for 2 years. He would just be going into his 4th year by the time Trey Hendrickson gets out of here, and he's now worked beside Chris Jones, George Karlaftis, and now Trey Hendrickson. I think you need that. I love Ashton Gillotte as much as the next guy. I don't know if he's ever going to get to that elite Trey Hendrickson level either.
Right. You think he's going to be about like
more of
George Karlaftis, right?
Yes, absolutely. So I don't think upgrading the position is ever a bad thing, and I will never apologize for that. If Ashton Gillotte works hard and somehow breaks the barrier that he has with physical limitations, it can get to that, then by all means, I hope he succeeds there. But I'm not going to hold my breath and wait for it, because in the NFL, that rarely happens.
Right, Mike. Well, we mentioned the Trent McDuffie trade earlier, and that's going to lead us to our next subject. We're going to talk about a couple of highly regarded cornerback prospects in this 2026 NFL draft. And let's kick it off, y'all, with Terrell. That's the younger brother of the Falcons, A.J. Terrell. And this kid has solidified himself as first-round talent, potential first-round talent. They've got him projected, Mike, mid to late first round right now. Recently mocked as high as number 23. So we're talking about a Clemson cornerback. There's been a few good ones that come out lately, right? Let's talk about the strengths of Terrell. I've mentioned him before. I thought that he would be, if Trent McDuffie were to be traded, maybe you could get Terrell. Maybe you could get him in that slot corner position and let him work from that. And that would be a massive upgrade probably from Jamari Conner. I don't think a lot of people is going to argue with that. But let's talk about him, dude. His strengths, elite mirroring. He's exceptional at staying in phase with receivers, and he rarely loses a step in vertical routes. He's a playmaker. He forced 5 fumbles in 2025, showing that he's got that punch ability. He'll ball hawk, and he punches the ball out. He's got versatility. He can play the boundary. He can play the nickel. So he kind of is a chess piece for someone like Spags that likes to move them back and forth and do this and that. But I would really like to see him focused in on that nickel corner position if the Chiefs were to go with him in the draft. Now, he's got a couple limitations, Mike. His frame's pretty small. He's 5'11", 180. That's not typical for what you see Spags trying to get with a corner, right? However, he is a top-tier man-to-man corner. He's sticky as hell, and he can do it. So I don't know if the size really eliminates him from that, because that's kind of the Chiefs' bread and butter, right, when it comes to corners. However, they've been kind of moving into a lot of zone in the last year or two. I'd like to see them get away from that and get back to more man-to-man. Other than that, it's just kind of ball production in general. Despite all the forced fumbles, he recorded 0 interceptions in 2025, which some people, like the scouts and everything, say it's kind of an anomaly that he didn't get more because of the way he plays. And all that said, Mike, it kind of reminds me of Trent McDuffie. This is a guy that can cover. He has a little bit of size limitations, and he doesn't turn the ball over that much. That's Trent McDuffie in a nutshell. Now, I'm not saying that Terrell's going to be a top 3 to 5 corner in the league like Trent McDuffie has been able to do, but It definitely sounds similar.
Yeah, there's some similarities when I watch the film. This is what I'll say about Terrell, and you kind of hit a lot of his pros. I mean, it's not hard to see the pros of Terrell. He's fast. He's got good closing speed. I think it's elite speed. And he also has a background as a punt returner and a kickoff returner. So he does have a chance to be that in the special teams game. I think he's pretty tough for his size. We mentioned he is a smaller guy, but he does try to play bigger than he is. I think he's pretty good in run support for his size. He does that. You mentioned that he likes to knock the ball out and different things. Him and Jacob Rodriguez, the linebacker out of Texas Tech, would just be the punch champions if you could put them on the same. If you had those two together, I mean, you might create 2 or 3 turnovers a game off just punching the ball. But I really do like some of what he does. I really like. Here's where I will say that I think he could get a lot better. And the reason that I don't necessarily think he's worth a mid first round pick, I could be comfortable taking him late first, early second. But again, this is on the basis of, like you said, solving the Trent McDuffie problem. If you were to get rid of him for, say, a 25 and on first round pick, this is where you would start looking in range for Terrell. But this would be his cons, and why I can't really get him up there in the mid first is because the play strength. He gets muscled a lot for 50-50 balls, and because he does lack bulk, he gets really grabby a lot. So I think he had 7 penalties last year, which was a lot. He just doesn't have a lot of bulk. He gets handsy. He grabs a lot. And it got called an awful lot at Clemson, to be honest, his senior year. He did play more on the boundary over the past few years that he's played in the slot. So he did get more comfortable in the slot this year. I think he actually went to like 12 in 2024, and then this year he played over 100. So he got a little bit more used to the slot. Would he be as good as McDuffie? Absolutely not. McDuffie's literally the top slot corner in football, probably, if you keep him there. But other than that, he gets baited by double moves a lot. Go back and watch SMU from 2024. That was a big one. So, look, I think he fits well if you run a lot of cover one, which Spags does do. He fits well in a cover three and off man. I think the other guy we're going to talk about is better for, say, matchup zone and press man. So, yeah, he's got those ball skills. I think he's good in run support, which is good. But again, that aggression that leads to penalties, that would have to be worked on a little bit because he is going to run into some bigger wide receivers. There's a lot of big wide receivers that come into this league and flourish. And that's one knock we've seen with Trey McDuffie. He got absolutely bullied with big wide receivers.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, when you look at it through the scope of we trade Trent McDuffie for, say, the 29th pick to the Rams, and you said that's kind of where Avion Terrell would come into play.
Yeah.
I kind of think, it kind of seems like a bit of a ripoff for the Chiefs to have to trade McDuffie just for Avion Terrell because you don't know what you're getting. Right? And it is a bit of a step down. I think McDuffie was a better prospect. However, if you were able to get another draft pick along with that, and you're thinking about Avion Terrell and, say, a third round or a fourth round pick, then it starts to look a little bit better. It makes you feel a little bit more warm and fuzzy. But let's talk about another guy over at Arizona State, Mike, Mr. Keith Abney. This dude's kind of been a riser in the 2026 class. He's known for a background in speed skating that translates to elite footwork. I thought that was hilarious, a speed skater.
Great. That's absolutely great.
His draft projection, Mike, is early day 2, top of the second round. Though some boards now have him in their top 25, so he's kind of, like I said, he's kind of rising up there. Real quick, I'll just touch on the strengths and weaknesses that I've seen about this kid, and then I'll let you take over with Abney. But he's got great fluidity. He's considered one of the stickiest corners in the entire draft, and his ability to decelerate and flip his hips is rated as elite. So you'll notice that on his tape right off the rip. In man coverage, he allowed only 44.4% completion rate in 2025, which is pretty damn good. His ball skills are a lot better than Terrell. He had 5 career picks there at Arizona State. But some of the weaknesses, you mentioned Avion Terrell being a bit grabby. This is also Keith Abney at the top of routes. He tends to get a little bit grabby. He had 6 penalties in 2025 from holding there. And then his size, very similar to Avion Terrell. He's a little bit undersized. He's 6 foot 190. It's adequate, but it's not imposing. I like Keith Abney as a prospect. I don't know how I like him compared to Avion Terrell. I guess I haven't really just thought about that much. But I think either one of these guys could be an interesting player for the Chiefs to look at in that late first or early second round.
I'm a big Keith Abney guy. He was one of the first ones that stuck out to me on film. So is he in my top 25 like you mentioned? No. But he is an early day 2 guy, and if he snuck into the back of day 1, I would not be surprised, I don't think. So what I'll say about Abney, and you hit a lot of it right on the nose, he had a really good year in 2025. I think he graded like an 86 overall from PFF. His run defense was a 78, so he was super high there. His zone coverage is really good. He's good in the zone. He forced 10 incompletions. He did have a dropped interception, but he only had 2 missed tackles throughout the entire year. I thought that was really good. Out of 785 defensive snaps, only 2 missed tackles. So, yeah, he's elite. He's an elite athlete, like you said. He's fluid, that speed roller skater thing, the smooth hips. There's things like that. He's very sticky in man-to-man. I think his tempo is really good when he mirrors players and things like that. I really like that. Again, I think he's a good tackler. 77.6% tackling grade in 2025 per PFF. And then I think the production, the ball production, 12 pass breakups, 2 picks in 2025, only held quarterbacks to a 46.1 passer rating, which is pretty elite. I think, let me make sure I got this right here looking at my notes. Yes, Avion Terrell allowed a 96.9 passer rating. Abney allowed a 46.1, so almost double for Terrell. So I want to say that I will call Terrell the enforcer here on the boundary, whereas It's one of those kind of things. Like I feel like quarterbacks don't want to throw his way as much, in my opinion. And so I really like what he does. Now, again, he's not super big at 190. You would say at the NFL level, maybe he can't jam large receivers very well or whatever. But I do think, he's a little slow sometimes vertically. A lot of guys can run by him a little bit. That's a little scary. And then again, he had a lot of penalties too. Like you mentioned, he gets a little grabby as well. I'll say this. I like both players, but I think if you lose Jalen Watson and if you lose Trent McDuffie, I think that Spags would prefer Keith Abney because of the man-to-man discipline he brings and corners that can tackle in space and be able to blitz like that. That 88 tackling grade is just something right there that's like no nonsense, man. He can do it, and I think he's got the IQ of a Trent McDuffie. I think that he's more that high IQ guy. So I believe that you could maybe put him in the slot. I think Keith Abney would be good in the slot to a certain degree. So I like both players. I really do. I think Terrell kind of fits more like a L'Jarius Sneed kind of vibe, not because he's so physical, but because Sneed was kind of good at creating those turnovers when you need it, like punching the ball out on Zay Flowers there versus the Ravens. That reminds me of like some Avion Terrell stuff.
Right. The difference between them to me, Mike, is I see Terrell as more of a high ceiling, like alpha corner, could eventually maybe replace a CB1 or not. I think Abney's probably the more steady of the two. Looks like he could be kind of like a plug-and-play technician. I don't think it's as volatile as Avion Terrell would be, and I think you could get him a little bit later in the draft. So if the Chiefs decided to address pass rush, let's just say they ended up with 3 of the top 40 picks because they traded Trent McDuffie. If they decided to address pass rush and maybe something else earlier on, I think Keith Abney would be the way to go. Otherwise, if you're sitting there at the end of the first round and you want a high ceiling guy, I think you go Avion Terrell. Just real quick, I got a couple of comps for each one, Mike. I don't know if you have any, but I got Avion Terrell pro comp of Nate Wiggins, who plays for the Ravens, and Adoree Jackson of the Giants, Mike. I think like Wiggins, Terrell's just kind of slender, twitchy, fast. He can definitely hang with all the wide receivers vertically because of the speed. And then that Adoree Jackson angle, I think some scouts use Jackson as a comp because of Terrell's lateral agility and his ability to contribute as a space defender. He's at his best when he can use his feet to mirror and match rather than trying to out-muscle guys at the line. So that's where I kind of got that from. And then with Keith Abney, I think Michael Carter Jr. or Michael Carter II or Desmond Trufant kind of come to mind when I watch Abney's tape. Michael Carter, he's kind of widely considered one of the best technician corners in the NFL, and that's kind of the first thing I said when I talked about Abney, so that's why that came to mind. The Trufant angle, I think during his prime with the Falcons, Trufant was known for his skating footwork, and that's exactly what I said about Abney, so that's kind of where I get those comps from.
Right. I like those comps. For me, I'll say Avion Terrell. I haven't really looked at it much. Maybe like another Clemson corner, like a Nate Wiggins, because he's like skinny but fast. You kind of got that vibe to it, skinny but fast, something like that. I would say that Abney, and I don't want to just say this is a slight to Derek Abney or Abney. I'm sorry, this is a slight to him, and I'm sorry I'm even going to say this. Keith Abney, yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm getting ready to do this to you, brother. I see a little bit of like Steven Nelson.
Oh,
like
no.
When he was
all
good,
right, we're going to go take Avion Terrell instead.
Well, it's no look when Nelson left the Chiefs, he actually turned out to be okay. There's some signs there, and I'll say it because of the way he can do the nickel as well. Like there's just things there. I think if I went with another comp, maybe like a Carlton Davis, somebody like that, sticky, physical, will struggle with penalties and has got to clean that up, but I think he's a guy that could be physical. Even I see L'Jarius Sneed, not L'Jarius Sneed, but there's qualities from L'Jarius Sneed's game in both of them. I think Abney's more physical. Terrell, turnover kind of machine kind of guy. So I haven't really got to look at comps specifically, but I'll say those, and I'm sorry that I wronged you, Keith Abney.
With Steven Nelson. That's pretty rough. Guys, appreciate y'all watching All Chiefed Up. Get down in the comments. Let us know what you think about all this stuff. Do you want Trey Hendrickson on the football team, even though he's kind of expensive? Would you like to see Trent McDuffie traded away? If so, what for, and also how do you like Keith Abney and Avion Terrell as cornerback prospects if the Chiefs were to go that route in the draft. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, do us a favor, give us a 5-star review, write some kind words down there so people know where to find some good Chiefs conversation. If you're watching here on YouTube, we appreciate you. Hit that like button for us. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We're trying to get up to 100K eventually. So if you haven't subscribed, and it says like 80% of you guys haven't, even though you're watching, just hit that subscribe button. Help your boys out. You guys are awesome. Share us out with your friends. Do whatever you got to do. Let's spread the word, and let's have a good off season here, man, because we're getting into it thick and heavy.
Oh, yeah.
It is officially the off season. Free agency's coming up, and draft right after that, dude. It's going to get wild. So appreciate you guys being here. We'll see you next time. Go Chiefs.